You know those dramatic courtroom scenes in movies, the surprise witnesses, the passionate closing arguments? Well, what really happens when someone gets hurt because of what someone else did or didn't do? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on personal injury law. We're going to follow the path from the moment an accident happens all the way to a final resolution. So, let's dive in. So let's set the scene. Imagine this. A driver, totally absorbed in their phone, doesn't see you in the crosswalk, and in that split second, everything changes. For the people involved, it's a life-altering event. But in the eyes of the law, this is just the beginning. The start of a very structured journey to figure out who's responsible and what justice looks like. See, when an injury like that happens, it's not just a medical problem. It actually kicks an entire legal system into gear, one that's designed to answer some really tough questions. And that system, that's the world of personal injury law. So what's this area of law all about? Well, it's really got two main jobs. First, it's about compensation, trying to make the victim whole again, at least financially. But just as important, it's a deterrent. It sends a message to everyone else that carelessness, well, it has consequences. And this isn't just some nice idea, It's written right into the law. In California, the law basically says we all owe each other a duty of care. We have a responsibility not to be careless and hurt people. You can think of it like the golden rule, but with real legal teeth. It is the absolute foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. So, to actually win a case, you have to prove 4 key things, and they have to be in this exact order. It's like a recipe. First, you have to show there was a duty, like the driver's duty to watch the road. Second, a breach of that duty. They were texting. Third, causation, that the texting directly caused the accident. And finally, damages, that you suffered real harm, like medical bills or lost wages. Every single piece has to be there. All right, so you think you've got those 4 elements lined up. Not so fast. Before you can even start making your case, you're up against one of the biggest hurdles in the entire legal system, a ticking clock. And I'm not exaggerating here. It's called the statute of limitations, and it is absolutely unforgiving. If you miss the deadline to file your lawsuit, even by a single day, your case is likely over, gone, forever. It doesn't matter how strong your case was. It's a harsh rule, but it's there to make sure disputes get resolved while the evidence is still fresh. And here's where it gets really, really tricky. For a standard car accident with another person, you generally have 2 years to file a lawsuit. Okay, but what if the car that hit you was a city bus? Well, because a government agency is involved, a completely different rule applies. You have only 6 months not to file a lawsuit, but to file a special government claim first. You can see how easy it would be to fall into that trap, right? Just remember this number: 2 years. For the vast majority of personal injury cases in California, from the moment of the injury, that's your window. The clock starts ticking immediately. Okay, so you've beaten the clock. You filed on time. What's next? Well, now the real detective work begins. This phase is called discovery, and it's all about each side gathering the facts and evidence they need to prove their case. And lawyers have some key tools to do this. They can send interrogatories, which are just written questions the other side has to answer in writing. They can file requests for production, asking for things like documents, photos, maybe even the driver's cell phone records. And then there are depositions, where lawyers get to question witnesses face-to-face, under oath. It's all about putting the puzzle together. So after all that evidence is piled up, the case moves into what I think are the toughest questions of all. How do you divide up the blame when maybe more than one person was at fault? And how on earth do you put a dollar amount on someone's pain and suffering? This is a perfect example of how the law can evolve to become, well, a lot more fair. It used to be that in California, the rule was incredibly harsh. If you were found to be even 1% responsible for your own injury, you got absolutely nothing, 0. But a huge case, Lee versus Yellow Cab, changed everything. Now we have comparative negligence. Your payout is simply reduced by whatever your percentage of fault is. So if you're 10% at fault, you can still recover the other 90%. It's a much more just system. Which brings us to a really tough question. A question at the heart of one of the most famous and infamous cases in American history. It's all about corporate responsibility and the value of a human life. Okay, what you're seeing here is absolutely chilling. Back in the 70s, Ford knew its Pinto model had a dangerous design flaw. And they did the math.
An internal memo, the Pinto memo, calculated that it would be cheaper to just pay out for the deaths and burn injuries that would happen than it would be to spend the $11 per car to fix the problem. This wasn't just an accident, it was a conscious decision to value profit over safety.
So, what does the law do when a company makes a decision like that? How do you hold them accountable? That's where something called punitive damages comes in. This is extra money awarded on top of the victim's compensation. Its only purpose is to punish the bad actor and to send a crystal clear message to any other company thinking of doing the same thing. Don't even think about it.
So, with all this talk of evidence and faults and damages, you'd think every one of these cases ends up in a huge courtroom showdown, right? Well, let's talk about how they actually end, because the reality is way different than what you see on TV.
Yeah, take a look at this. It might surprise you. The vast majority of personal injury cases, we're talking around 95% of them, never actually go to trial. They get resolved through a settlement instead. So think of a settlement like a private deal, a compromise that both sides agree to, usually for a certain amount of money, to end the case. A trial, on the other hand, is the public showdown. It's the final step, the last resort for that tiny fraction of cases where the two sides just cannot find a middle ground. It's truly the exception, not the rule.
And this quote really just sums it all up beautifully, doesn't it? The whole system is this incredible balancing act between precision, the cold, hard facts, the deadlines, the rules of evidence, and justice. That very human search for what is fair and right. And that really brings us full circle back to the big fundamental question here. The entire system is designed to do two things: compensate victims and deter bad behavior, usually with money. But it leaves us with this huge question to think about. When someone's life has been changed forever, can any amount of money ever truly equal justice? That's the challenge at the very heart of personal injury law.